We are with the MEC for Education, Kwazi Mshengu, here at the school in Georgetown, in Pietermaritzburg. He has just spoken to learners, encouraging them to do good in this academic year, the start of the academic year in the province. But I'm going to let him speak to us. Thank you very much for your time, MEC. Can you just tell us your assessment? You were up and about early this morning, assessing schools. Amid that, there are reports that there are 11 schools in Mkambatini that were not able to open. Can you just give us a sense of what's happening and how do you plan to resolve that situation in Mkambatini, where the community, the learners and the teachers are being threatened not to open today?
Well, so far in the province of KwaZulu-Natal, we are quite happy with the manner in which we reopened our schools. Of 6,000 schools, there are about 17, only 17 schools that could not open. 6 of them are in Ladysmith, and we decided not to open them because they cannot be accessed because of the flooding that is still giving us challenges that side. We're hoping that as the weather clears, the water will subside, and probably tomorrow, Friday, we'll be able to open those schools. Then there are 11 schools in Mkambatini which are affected by the feud over chieftaincy in that area. Yesterday, we woke up 11 of them being locked and with notices that if principals would decide to open these schools, there will be consequences. And some of the principals actually opened the schools yesterday, and they started to receive anonymous calls to say, you will suffer the consequences because we have acted against what we told you. So we decided to close those schools yesterday immediately, and today they are not operating, so that we allow the security forces to take over the area and stabilize the area, so that we open schools in a conducive environment where teachers, learners are not scared for their lives. So that is why we decided to delay them, but we are hoping that by tomorrow we should be able to open those 11 schools.
Another situation, apart from the problem in Mkambatini, you will also have the issue that is coming up now of the vaccination of learners, 12-year-olds. I just wonder how you plan to handle those issues, because we've heard some horrific stories, people being forced to vaccinate or people rejecting the vaccine. In the province, how do you plan to handle that during the start of this academic year?
We are going to embark on a massive drive to vaccinate our learners, with a launch that will happen at the beginning of February. But we're not going to force any learner to take vaccination, just like we did with the educators. There is no educator that was forced. But the majority of them, 98%, came up voluntarily to say, let's vaccinate. And we are hoping that the learners will also do the same. We'll be really on a massive campaign to encourage learners to vaccinate, but also to talk to their parents so that they also assist us to encourage these learners. Because one thing that we need is the stability in the sector. The rotational timetable is really affecting us. It's not working as for the Department of Education. When these learners progress to other classes, they progress with sustainable learning gaps, which are really a problem. Now, we want to normalize the education sector. We want to make sure that we back to normal, so where learners attend on a daily basis. That is why it's important that these learners also vaccinate, so that we can then make a strong case to the NCCC that at least learners must now all be allowed to attend every day.
You've already touched on the issue of the rotation of learners to minimize COVID-19 spread. How long do you think this will last, the rotation? You've said that it's abnormal and that learners need to get back to normal. How soon do you think this will be normalized?
Well, I can't predict. Obviously, we get guided by scientists and the decisions of the NCCC. But what we need to do is to make sure that all that they are directing us to do, we do it in a manner that will help us, that when we make the case of the total return of learners, everybody understands that indeed learners are now supposed to be back in schools. It's indisputable that the rotational timetable is affecting us as a sector. But equally, we can't risk the lives of these learners and the educators. That is why we're saying, let's embark on a massive drive for vaccination, so that even if a learner or an educator is vaccinated, is infected, the chances of serious illness are reduced, because as we know, these vaccines that do not mean that you will not be infected, but they help to reduce the risk of serious illness, so that if you are infected, at least you can continue with your normal life. We are in desperate need, really, to return to normality in our schools.
Lastly, MEC, 90 schools is seriously in need of mobile classes. How soon do you think these will be delivered delivered to help learners learn?
Delivery is already taking place. Some of the schools have received the whole contingents of mobile classrooms that they requested. As we speak, some are delivered to certain schools. But what is helping us again is this rotational timetabling that I was complaining about. That at least there is no school that is not functional because it was affected by storms. There are classes that were spared, and they are using those classrooms, particularly for grade 12 and grade 11. But we are hoping that by end of this week, all these schools that were affected by storms will have received mobile classrooms. The 90 schools that were affected by storms. You will also recall that we actually don't budget for such things. It's disaster. It happens without being budgeted for. So we have had to reprioritize our funds, get approval from provincial treasury, so that whatever we do is also in line with the legal prescripts.
MEC for Education, Kwazi Mshengu, outlining what has been happening in the province since this morning. But for now, it's back to you in the studio, Desiree.